The Addiction Podcast, Point of No Return.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Addiction Podcast, Point of No Return. My name is Joni Siegel, and I'm the host for this podcast. My husband, Steve Siegel, is the producer for the podcast. Just a reminder to please subscribe to our podcast wherever you listen to them, and give us a 5-star rating. That way, when someone searches for podcasts on addiction, they will find us because Google will bring us up. Also, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Ever since January 2021, I think it is, maybe 2020, we've been videoing our interviews, and sometimes it's nice to watch them while you listen as well. Please subscribe to our channel, give us a thumbs up on our videos, and also ring the bell so you'll be notified when we have new videos that are produced and posted. Today's interview is a little different than one we have done recently. This is an interview with several people, and it is about an intervention, a successful intervention that was done. And we thought you might like to hear from not only the interventionist, Bobby Newman, who is a regular on our podcast and an advertiser on our podcast, but also hear from the family of the former addict and the former addict herself. So please enjoy our podcast today with Bobby Newman, and I will introduce the rest of the members of the podcast. Bobby Newman, interventionist par excellence. Thank you not only for being on the podcast today, but also for bringing our guests. Thank you for doing that. Bobby, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background. We've had you on a couple different times, and we love having you on and telling your stories. But so just give everybody a little background on you.
Well, I'm from a small town in southern Oklahoma. And when I say small, I mean, a lot of times I've talked to people and they'll say, oh, I'm from a small town and it's got about 5,000 people. And I'm talking 648 people in the town that I grew up in, a high school, graduated high school from. And, I'm in rural Oklahoma and got into drinking and then eventually smoking weed, and then got into other stimulants when I was in college. And it led me to, by the time I was 35 years old, I was looking at 7 years in a federal penitentiary and was put into, had a option of either A, going to prison, or B, going to rehab. And fortunately, I chose the smarter of the two options and went to rehab. So, and then as I went through the program, I got into prevention, and then it eventually led into other things. And I got into interventions later on, and I've actually been helping people for over 20 years now.
I was going to say, how long have you done it? So over 20 years. And you, if I remember correctly, you have a pretty high success rate on the interventions that you do.
Yeah, it runs about 85 to 90% of the time the person is going to enter treatment. And that's across the board, considering all aspects of the scenarios, different types of scenarios, from people that haven't been, live on the streets, and people that live at home, and just any type of scenario. That's the average is 85 to 90% of the time they go to treatment.
Right. I know that we could probably spend the whole day just talking about all the different stories that you have. However, thank you for bringing to us our guest today, because for everybody listening, you're going to actually get to hear from the family and also from the former addict in terms of Bobby's intervention and how it went down. So, Bobby, tell us who we have on the podcast today.
Well, I'm going to start with Mom. I have, there's Tammy Johnson, and then there's the Uncle Brian Villancourt, and then there's grandmother Diane, and then the star of the show is Lexie Johnson.
Awesome. So, Lexie, let's start with you. Give us a little background on how old you were when you got into drugs, kind of how it progressed, where you ended up, like what your drug of choice was.
So, I mean, like any other teenager, you're like, oh, people are smoking weed, let's try it. At that point, it really wasn't a big deal. I wasn't turning to it every day. I wasn't depending on it. It was like, oh, that's cool. Wasn't really a huge fan of it. And then about 18 years old, I believe, if I'm doing my numbers correct, So what I would do is like when I had, my special time of the month, I would get oxys off of my boyfriend's mother, and it would like help because the cramps were so bad, and by the time that would be over, I wouldn't be addicted to it or anything. I know you shouldn't be doing that,
But
but
Lexie, would she give them to you, or you would just
she
take
would
them?
it depended on the month. So if she didn't have any money, I had to pay her for them. If she did have money, she would just let me have them. And it was only like one or two, and I would like space it out just to like get me through the day. And like my story is a little interesting because the drug that put me in rehab wasn't by choice per se. So I had started, snorting the oxys because I could do less of them and I would get the same effects. And then one would last me the duration versus needing three from like putting the whole pill in your mouth. And the one time my ex was putting heroin in with it because that's what his drug of choice was at the time. And by the time that week was over, I like stopped doing it because I didn't need it anymore. And I was like, why do I feel like this? And at the time, I wasn't really a strong enough person to like walk away and say like, I'm just going to get through it now before it's too late. And one thing led to the next. And then it was like 2.5, 3 months later. And all of a sudden, I was being bombarded by family members from all different angles. So yeah, that's kind of a little bit of like the background.
So, okay. So you were then using heroin like on a regular basis?
Yeah, because I was already addicted to it and the
Okay.
withdrawals were pretty crazy.
Okay. So what year or how old were you then when you would say you were like full on addicted?
I think I was 19, turning 20.
Okay.
And then they got me sort of
It's okay.
somewhere around there.
Understood. So Tammy, were you like aware of what was going on with her, or what was your first clue that something was going on?
So a couple of her friends had told me, that she was dabbling in drugs, and, she was living home at the time. So I was like, all right, well, I can see her every day. So I was watching and I'm like, well, like maybe there's a few signs here and there. And like, there's one day that I was definitely really scared, was the day that she passed out, literally laying across her bed like this. And she wasn't on the bed, but she wasn't off the bed. And I bumped her like pretty hard, and like, she didn't wake up, and I'm like, this is not good. This is not good. So I bumped her harder, and she woke up and she just said, oh, I'm just really, really tired. So I just kind of filed that at that point. Cause I'm like, all right, well, something's going on because this isn't my daughter.
Right.
And then I started to, just kind of watch everything. And there was at one point where there was a time that was kind of, another kind of scary time like that. And I confronted her about it. And like, if you know anything about my daughter, she doesn't take confrontation very well. Her go-to is to run away. So like at that point, when I confronted her, she took off with Tyler. And then I was really scared because now I couldn't see her. So that was, and then I'm like, okay, I need to start doing some research. How can I help her? Because I know I need to help her, because it's just like, this isn't my daughter.
Right. And Tyler was her boyfriend, right?
Tyler was her boyfriend.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Brian, how did you get involved? And Diane, how did you guys get involved in this?
She wasn't showing up. to any of the family functions or anything like that. And she used to always be there.
Okay. And so did you talk to Tammy or did you confront Lexie? How did it go from there?
We all kind of got together to try and figure out what was going on. And we were told several times that she was at certain locations. So once we found out where she was, we'd go out looking for her, and she wasn't there. She'd already moved on to another place and stuff like that.
Okay. Diane, you were going to say something?
And then Bob came in and kind of steered us in the right direction, what to do.
Understood.
And the main thing was getting her out of that house and away from them.
Right.
So I had to make up a lie about my mom being sick and that Lexie needed to go see her. And then Tyler says, well, I'm going too. And I said, no, she doesn't want anybody. So and he just kind of locked me out after that because I think he knew.
Exactly. Divide and conquer at that point.
Bob says, okay, Tyler's gone. I already turned him in. So the cops took him away, and that was my chance. And I flew up there, got her out of the house, and brought her down to my house, my mother's house and mine. And that's when we started the intervention.
Okay. So, Bobby, when did they contact you, and who contacted you? How did that go down?
I got contacted by the treatment center that she went to at Narconon Arrowhead. The management at Narconon, they called me to help Tammy, and then they put me on the phone with Tammy, and then we worked out, how we were going to pull this off, we started the process of, putting together the intervention, and that's how it started.
So take us through that. Tell us what you do there. I know we've heard about it, just from your viewpoint, but what did you do?
Well, one of the things that, the Tammy had worked out, this is the program that she wants. And then they put her in touch with me. And then we talked about, I remember the conversation we had at your house when I got there. I don't remember the conversation we had necessarily on the phone, but I remember arriving and meeting you at your house and meeting your friend and talking to you and asking some questions. And I'm in the back of my mind thinking, how the heck am I going to pull this off? I don't, I got nothing to work with. I don't even know where this girl's at, but I got to help this woman. I got to help this family. So that's kind of what was going through my head. I was like, so it was it worked out beautifully and everybody worked wonderfully, but it was definitely one of those things like I was scratching my head going, okay.
So what was the plan? I mean, how did that happen? Because he doesn't even know where Lexie is. Did you know where Lexie was at the time?
So I had a couple of inklings. So we had been kind of scouting her and knowing like a couple of the friends. We would do some research on like their addresses. So I have this thing called White Pages where you can kind of look up people. So it'll kind of give you a general idea of where they are. At that point, I was actually, so Lexie and Tyler disappeared. So Tyler's mom contacted me because she was scared. And I kind of just said to her, I'm like, oh, now who's scared because they can't find their child, and it was like, so I kind of befriended her to trick her into helping me find Lexie, not telling her the whole thing of what my plan was.
Right.
I had done some research and I knew a 30-day program was not going to help my daughter.
Very good point.
So I knew that a 30-day program, and if I didn't get her out of here, he was going to get his clutches back into her, and there's no way I was going to help her. I'm like, I have one shot at this.
Yep. Lexie, you look like you wanted to weigh in with something. I saw your little hand go up.
Hi, Tiffy. So I don't know exactly at what point either, but so at one point there was also conversation between my mom and my ex on my phone. And one day I woke up and there was one message, the only message that I saw, and it was, if you come back, I'm changing the locks. If you come back here, I'm calling the cops. Now, mind you, I thought it was for me because it was on my phone. It was under my name. And so that definitely didn't help with them trying to locate me because I was like, well, now I have no one. Like, I don't even have my mom on my side. So I just wanted to add that little piece.
I get it. I get it. So it sounds like, Diane, did you come up with a bright idea about telling Lexie that your mom was sick, or was that Tammy's idea?
Yeah. I kind of said, she's going to come and see her great grandmother. If anything, that's who she's going to go see. And
Oh, okay. So Lexie, you obviously believed it, that your great grandmother was sick and that you had to go see her, correct?
I don't know how much I believed it, but for me, if I hadn't gone and she really was sick, I wouldn't have been able to live with that with myself more than anything, because they knew my great grandmother was like the world to me.
Understood.
And I'm very grateful I got that extra, almost 2 years, 2.5 years with her. So, I'm very grateful.
Okay. And she's passed on, right?
Yeah, she passed away almost a year ago.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's
So Brian, were you involved in this process there? Did you restrain the boyfriend, or?
No, I tried finding him.
Okay.
That's a funny
And were
story.
you successful? Did you find him?
I found his location a couple of times, but by the time anybody went to go see about him, they were already gone. They were bouncing around, so it was hard to keep track of them.
Understood. Lexie, is he still addicted as far as you know?
I mean, based off of evidence, I would say there is a 99.9% chance that he is still doing drugs.
That's too bad. Okay. So you got her. You got Lexie where you wanted her. Bobby, what happened then?
Well, it was funny because I feel the need to tell this story because we knew nothing going in, and didn't know where she was at, and it was like, okay, who does she hang out with? And the only thing that I remember talking to you, Tammy, at her house, and she told me about a friend that worked at a pizza shop, and I can't remember the friend's name, but he worked at the pizza shop. So I went down to the pizza shop and I sat there for about 4 hours. And I'm listening, and I talked to this one kid about, I thought, well, I better have some food. So he gave me this recommendation on some chicken wings, and I ate the chicken wings, and I'm fiddling around there, and I can't remember, but I'm waiting to hear if I thought, well, I don't know how much longer I'm going to sit here. And finally, a local guy regular comes in, and he says the kid's name. And the kid was the one who was managing the place. So I thought, well, that's the kid I'm looking for. That's the friend. So I waited for him, and I set out my car, and I waited for him, and he was the manager of the little pizza shop. So I go in and I wait for him to come out, and I said to him, and I said his name, I can't remember his name, but I said, do you know Tyler and Lexie? And he goes, I could see the look on his face. He did. And I'm like, so, it would be in the best interest for Tyler and Lexie if Lexie were to let her family know where she's at, just be in the best interest of everybody. And I said, and I told him the story about these kids that had gotten pulled over, and there was drugs in the car. And it happened. And I said, there was a kid in there, and I acted like it dawned on me that, oh yeah, it got the same name. I want to say his name was Ryan, but I'm not sure. But anyway, and he goes, I said, was that you? And he goes, oh no, that wasn't me. And I said, okay. Well, you don't seem like that kind of kid anyway. So, and I went on. Well, he didn't know who I am. He didn't know if I'm the FBI or what. So it was about 30 minutes later, Tammy calls me and said, I don't know what you did, but because then I guess they were calling her and saying, hey, she's here, she's okay. And so we knew where she's at. So then I talked to the rest of the family, and we came up with the idea that, Diane was going to go over and try to get her out of there. And that's what happened. But I went over I got the location, and I drove down the street, and I'm driving down the street, and I see these two kids sitting on the side of the road. They're huddled up on the side of the road. I don't know if even Lexie knows this now, but I took a picture of them and snapped it, and I sent it to Tammy, and I said, is this her? And she said, yeah. And so that's her. And so that's when we came up with the plans for Diane to go over, and that didn't work. So I thought, well, what the heck? And I went over and talked to Brian. I don't know if you remember this or not, Brian, but I talked to you and your friend out there behind your house, and out there you had a fire going.
Yeah.
And he said, you give me till 8:00 in the morning. I didn't know about this till today, but if you'll give me till 8:00 in the morning, we'll handle the boyfriend. And I said, and then they started asking me, well, I was being asked by others, well, what does that mean? I was like, I don't know, and I don't care. I'm not asking. I knew he meant what he said. I had no doubt that the boyfriend was not going to be a problem. So I went back over and I thought, well, I don't have anything to do. So I went back over and I was waiting around and I saw they come back down the street. They're outside and I'm parked right there. I don't know if she doesn't know this, but I watched them for like probably 45 minutes. And I was on the phone with somebody else, and then Tyler made a deal with somebody else, and that's why. And then I called 911. So, and I think I might have talked to Diane. I think I called Diane, and she's like, "Well, can you call 911?" And I said, "I don't know. I'm not going to get my hopes up, but I'll try." And the timing was impeccable because they showed up, and then by the time Tyler and Lexie made it back down the street, the police went down there and got him and carted him off, that's when I called Diane back, and that's how that happened. But anyway, that's not the question you asked me, but that's the story.
No, but it's a great story. Yeah. Okay, so now you've got Tyler out of the picture, so to speak. Tell us then about the intervention. What happened then? When did you realize, obviously, Lexie, that this was not all about your great-grandmother, correct?
I kind of knew. I mean, I didn't know exactly what was going on, but I kind of knew. And I also knew, like, because in the situation that we were in, I was like, so it's funny because my ex, when he slammed the door in her face, that pissed me off.
Ah, okay.
I was mad because that's my family.
Yeah.
Like, at the end of the day, my family's still my family, regardless of what's going on. And
it was in Diane's face. He slammed the door in Diane's face.
I'm pretty sure that it was yours, right?
Yep, she's nodding. Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, I wasn't in view, so I didn't know exactly what was going on. But he turned around and he was like, "They're gonna try to trap you. They're gonna try to take you from me," like talking all sorts of craziness. And I was just like, sitting there like almost dumbfounded, like what is going on right now? Like it was almost like I was the tug toy between two dogs and which one was stronger. And so then
I'm gonna put my money on Diane. I'm just saying, I don't know Tyler, but I'm gonna put my money on Diane.
My mom always says he might have won the battles, but I won the war. So
there you go.
You know, and so when my grandmother had came back, obviously they were still playing along with the whole, my great grandmother was sick and ill. And another thing that helped boost it along with me, you know, choosing to go with her was my great grandmother actually called me at one point and said that if I didn't come see her, then she didn't want to ever see me again. So that one hurt. That one hurt.
Yep. Maybe even more than changing the locks. I don't know. That's a tough one.
Yes. Yeah. I'd say those are pretty equal because, you know, yeah. So
I get it.
And then I remember I went and I got ready and I put on some clothes and stuff. And I remember going down. And my grandmother was like, "Do you know how to get out of here?" I don't really know if I know how to get out of here. I was like, "I can look it up for you." She goes, "No, that's okay." And I later found out it's because of all the messages between Bobby and her and my mom and Uncle Brian. And she didn't want me to see them. She goes, "I think I recognize this bridge." And I'm sitting there going, "Yeah, okay."
Because I take it you were in a part of town that was not known to your mom and your grandmother and your uncle.
Yes.
Okay. So where did the intervention actually take place?
It happened so my grandmother owns a duplex and my great grandmother was living on the other side, and it happened on the other side of my great grandmother's living room. And I remember I was walking in and all of a sudden my uncle pops out of one corner. I go out the front door. Some stranger who's not now known as Bobby comes in through the front door, and then we sit down, and it took a little because I'm assuming my mom was, you know, trying to gather herself before my mom walked in. And I remember sitting there going, "What the hell is going on here?
Understood. And Diane, were you part of the actual intervention? Were you in on that as well?
Yes, I was.
Okay.
I had to get her out first.
Yes.
And then, took her straight. And the reason why I didn't want her picking up my phone was because of all the messages. And I said, no, I think I know, but I was trying to stall and go really slow. So they all had time to get to my house to do the intervention.
Understood.
So I said, I think I know my way. And I just drove really slow. I mean, I wasn't even doing the speed limit.
And well done you for doing what it takes. I mean, all three of you. It's not pleasant necessarily to get your loved one out of that type of situation. And well done you, Diane. I don't know that I would like to meet you in a dark alley because
Tyler.
You are one tough cookie, I'm just saying. So Bobby, then back to you. Walk us through what you did there. So now you've got Brian and Diane and Tammy all there. Talk to us.
Well, we had planned, we had talked about different scenarios because we were really kind of flying by the seat of our pants, not that we didn't have total control of but until Diane was able to get her in the car and on the way, and then we were like, okay, and then everybody goes into action. And these guys did, it's getting the family to work together and telling the do's and don'ts. And it's a really, what we're operating off of is a really good guess. We're going to do the best we can. It's not going to be perfect. We're going to do the best we can. And once the family knows what to do and what not to do, they usually figure it out for themselves. And this is a classic example. These guys did exactly what they needed to do. And, bumps. And I don't even know that I can't even think of, any hiccups except for the ticket I got and the but that was on the way, but we were already out of there, but everything was great. And it was, so we sat down and we basically explained to her how we felt. I mean, the family did anyway, that we care about you. We love you. We care about you. And, we see this, you're slipping away from us and we don't like it. And we want to prevent that from happening. That was essentially what they said to her. And you could tell by looking at her that was a big impact on her.
Right.
When the intervention was going, it was like, you could tell this was really, yeah.
And I think one of the things you've said, and I think you said this even when we were talking beforehand, is that you have to have all of the family members in agreement and on the same page, that they will do and say whatever they need to say and do to get the person to agree to go to treatment. Is that correct?
That's right. That's right.
Okay. Diane, yes. Diane was first, Lexie.
I know what she's going to say.
I had to promise her and go on a plane. I've never flew on a plane. I was petrified. And the only way she would go was if I went on the plane and took her.
Wow.
So I swallowed my pride and did it.
I said, if I'm going to rehab, you're going on a plane for the first time.
Wow. And you did, Diane. You confronted it and you went on.
Hey, my kids and my grandkids are everything to me. So,
and you make a good point. It's like you do whatever you have to do as a family member. And, maybe some people listening don't realize how far they might have to go, but there you go. So, Lexie, what was the point at which, when they were all talking to you, that you thought to yourself, I guess I better do this?
Well, so I kind of always knew that I needed to get help. I never knew how to ask for it because my mom said, I'm not very good with confrontation. And I never liked to get in trouble. And so I almost essentially felt like I was going to get in trouble. But so I'd have to say that one of the main things was everyone bringing up how I used to be the light to everyone and how I'd always make everyone happy and that they missed who I really was. And then I'd have to say the final tip on the iceberg was seeing a grown man cry.
You are listening to the Addiction Podcast, Point of No Return. For more information on the podcast or to reach out if you have a story you would like to share with us, go to our Facebook page by the same name, or you can email us at theaddictionpodcast@yahoo.com, or go to our website, theaddictionpodcast.com, or call us at 727-314-7080. And please remember to subscribe to our podcast wherever you listen to podcasts and give us a 5-star review. Sometimes the hardest thing about getting someone into recovery is getting them to agree to treatment. Bobby Newman, a certified drug counselor with 30 years experience and an over 85% success rate as an interventionist, has created a series of 12 videos that you can use right now to learn every step to get your loved one to agree to treatment. Call 1-833-918-0008 today and say the word podcast to get a 10% discount. Or go to newmaninterventions.com and type in the word podcast for a 10% discount. This service comes with a free 1-hour consultation with Bobby.
Uncle Brian. So I had missed, I think it was one of each of his son's birthdays. And he was talking about how he wanted his their Aunt Lexie, even though I'm their cousin, I'm so much older that they just call me Aunt Lexie, to see them graduate. And then he started crying. And I was like, wow, okay. That's crazy. I was like, I want to be there. I want to be there for everyone. And I'm a huge family person. Like, you usually always see me at every family event. If I miss one, I'm either dying or I got really lost.
And that's what Brian said. He said that was his first clue, was that you were missing some of these events that he knew were important to you. Right, Brian? I mean, what would cause that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. I put the camera on you there, Brian. Okay, cool. So, Tammy. Yes, ma'am.
So I think also, I don't know if Lexie remembers this, but my grandmother, which is her great grandmother, the letter after she read her letter, it was like you could just see Lexie go, okay, I really have to go.
Okay. This was a letter from the great grandmother who was not sick.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. What did she say, Lexie? What do you remember that she said?
I don't really remember per se every details, but I do remember. So I remember when I walked in, because I looked horrible, like anorexia, horrible, like skin and bones. And I remember when I walked in, she's like trying to put forth a front, but I could see it in her face when she saw me, like, what happened to my great granddaughter? So that was like an eye opener for me. But, everyone, always said, everyone basically said, along the same lines. And, I heard it from my mom, and I heard it from my grandma, and I heard it from my uncle, and I heard it from her. And I was just I need to do this. I was like, I need to do this for them, if not for me, but I also need to do it for me. And I think that's one of the reasons why it was so successful, because that's not who I was. And, I have no problem. In fact, my friend will say to me sometimes, she's like, why do you always have a smile on your face when you're telling your story? And I'm like, because I'm alive, because I'm here today. It's something to be proud of. I'm here. I'm proud of it. And, so it was kind of like she's getting old, and I knew she didn't have a whole lot of time left. And, if she's asking me for help on top of everyone else, it's like, I only have a window this big. Mm-hmm. And so I was kind of like, I'm going to do this for all of them. Yeah.
Understood. The right decision. So you went to Narconon Arrowhead, is that correct? Okay. Tell us just a little bit about the program. And, most notably, I think, is when during the program that you kind of knew that you were kind of you turned a corner and that now it was going to be possible for you to be clean and sober?
So I would have to say I was not a unique case, but a unique case because I walked in going, I'm going to do this. Like, I'm going to do this for myself and my family. So I never really pitched a hissy fit to anyone per se, because some people do because they're not there by choice.
Right.
And, so I was just, going through the steps, and it was kind of cool because as I kept going, I started to see myself come back. And I remember calling my mom at one point and I was like, aren't you happy to have your old Lexie back? And I'm like giggling and laughing and cracking jokes and, doing all of that stuff. But I'd have to say when you get to the very end of the program and you're like writing, well, actually back it up a step. So there's a part of the program where you're going through like the people in your life and figuring out if they're good or bad. That was kind of like an eye opener of like, okay, so this is my circle. This is where I need to keep my circle. And, it wasn't hard to cut out my ex because it goes way further than just, the drugs and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, I got this. And I was like, and then when I got to the part where you write down like the things that you did wrong, I struggled with that because one thing about when you date that type of person is the lines get blurry because you might not have actually done anything wrong, but they've like master manipulated you into thinking that you did wrong. And that's why they are the way they are. And I would say that was really rough. It was really rough for me because I was like, I don't know what I did wrong and what I didn't do wrong. And it took me a while to like sort out, okay, what's actually my burden and not the burden I took on from him.
That's a very good point. That's a very good point, Lexie. Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt. Keep going.
No, that's okay. I was just going to say, and writing those, I think definitely like you feel like a whole new person. You feel so much like lighter because everything you ever did wrong before you started doing drugs, while you're doing drugs, you don't have to like carry it around anymore. And I thought that was pretty cool. I still write them to this day.
That's awesome. I think it's a good practice. Tammy, when during the program did you realize that this was going to work and you were going to get your daughter back?
So there, in the beginning, there was like a couple of, so after Lexie went, Tyler and his mother basically harassed me. Yeah. So they're like, we're going to go get Lexie back. Where is she? Which is good. The reason why I sent her so far away, cause I knew 30-day program, that doesn't actually dive into why you started drugs in the first place is not going to help.
Exactly.
And B, I knew I had to get her far away so that he couldn't drive to her. So when in the first couple of days I still have them. I have the voicemail messages that his mother left me. And
why his mother? Was she? Did she not know Tyler was addicted?
She's a druggie too. So she didn't, of course. It's like a family thing over there.
Understood.
So she just left me nasty messages and
I'm sure.
Because Lexie beforehand had her father passed away when she was 4. So she had some inheritance money. And he knew that she had this money. So that's how I knew that there was something really wrong, because I don't know if you know Lexie, but she's very tight with her money. So when I saw her blow through $30,000 in 1 month, I was like, whoa, what is going on? Once I got her to rehab, like, he continued to harass me because he wanted the money, because the money is what supported their habit.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like, she's my wife, because he tricked her in one of the drunken stupors to to marry him. She's my wife. I'm allowed to know where my wife is.
Wow.
Just really nasty stuff. And I said, look, you basically almost killed my daughter. Like, if I didn't find her, when she first went in, they probably after 2 days, because you don't have contact for the first 2 days, they had to send her to the hospital because she was so low in potassium that they weren't even sure how she was standing up.
Wow.
So I think after she came back, after, being hospitalized and having all the IVs and everything, after a week, I could start to see a difference in her. And then after 2 weeks, she said to me, she's like, you tricked me. This isn't a 30-day program. I'm not going to be home for summer, or I forget what for summer, I think she said. She's like, I'm not going to be home for summer. She's like, you tricked me. And I'm like, you're going to be there for as long as it takes for you to get better.
Yep.
And for you to get your mind right.
And I wasn't in a rush though.
Yeah, no, she wasn't. But she, her and I have this thing where we joke back and forth. It's like,
I get it.
That's when I knew I had my daughter back.
Good.
And so yeah, it was great.
That's awesome. Diane and Brian, did she talk to you while she was in rehab? Did you?
Yes.
And when did you kind of know that, okay, we've got our Lexie back?
When she started asking for her goodies.
Oh.
So I would go on Walmart and do whatever she wanted and just have it mailed right to there. So, and she would call me at least once a week, and just to keep me so that I knew she was okay, because it was pretty scary bringing her there.
Yeah.
Because all she did was vomit the whole way, and I was so scared. But thank God to Bob, he explained what was going on.
Okay.
So I knew.
You were with them, Bobby, when they flew to Arrowhead? You were there?
Yes. So
Okay.
that's quite a story in and of itself. But
And Lexie, you were vomiting the whole time?
Yeah, because I actually hadn't had anything for a few hours. I mean, we did a little bit, but it wasn't like enough.
Okay.
So I was already, by the time, because that was a story and a half.
Okay.
And, Bobby got pulled over,
Oh, yeah, Bobby, you got to tell us about the ticket. I mean, come on.
My grandmother warned him.
Well, I'm pro law enforcement, but not with that guy. Not that guy. And at that moment, in a 4-lane highway going both through 8 lanes. I think it was 8 lanes total. At a little bitty stretch of highway. And they got it bumped down to, I don't even know, 50 miles an hour. I don't even know what it was, but it was just a little stretch, and I was in a hurry, and it was dark. It wasn't. There was no. I don't even know that you could see the speed limit signs. But
keep on justifying there, Bobby.
Yes.
Small price to pay. Small price to pay. That's all I can say.
Exactly. Okay, so sorry. Back to you, Diane. So it was pretty rough taking her there, and then, but then she started asking you for goodies.
Yeah. Once she called and we, cracked jokes, and she said, I need gummy bears. That's not a problem. You tell me what you want, I'll send it to you.
I love it. Brian, did she call you as well from rehab?
Yeah, we basically played phone tag. Lexie would call one person. If they couldn't answer, then she'd go to the next, then to the next. And then she was like, oh, somebody's calling me back. I'll talk to you later.
Okay. Fair enough. So Lexie, if you had advice to give to any families who are listening who maybe have a loved one that is having a substance abuse problem, what would you say to them?
Well, I mean, because I guess everyone's different, but for me, it was them hitting home. Like, know what the person's home is, and don't be afraid, per se, to cry in front of them. Be vulnerable with them, because for me, seeing that from all of my family members is one of the biggest factors, was wow, like I hurt, like seeing it right in front of your face. I hurt every single one of them in their own ways. And that really, helped me with making, that final leap and saying, okay, fine, just take me. And then once you get there, it's not going to be easy. Rehab isn't easy, but it's well worth it, because I'll run into a situation today and I'm like, okay, remember step 3. Because I don't know if I'm allowed to like say,
Sure.
go
Absolutely.
into details, but like confronting and, our objectives and, okay, take those tools that you learned and use them, Lexie. And it's really helped, because I wouldn't be here right now if it wasn't for that program, like doing the podcast, because I'm not I don't do public speaking and stuff like that. So I was definitely a little nervous first getting on here.
Well, I would just like to interrupt and say that you're absolutely amazing, and you could stand up in front of any group and tell your story, and hugely valuable. And I understand if it makes you nervous. I'm not trying to push you into something that you're not comfortable with, but I'm going to tell you right now, you have been absolutely perfect, all of you, on the podcast today, and you could tell anybody your story, and I think it would be very meaningful. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you for allowing me to.
Absolutely. Tammy, talk to the mothers. What would you say to them?
Oh man, don't give up. There was a point where I almost gave up, and definitely don't do it.
No, because you have your daughter back.
You do. And like it was probably the 3rd try that we were trying, Bobby's like, well, Bobby said to me, well, you already paid me for the week. So he's like, I might as well hang out here for the week and keep trying. Because we tried almost everything. And I'm like, he just has her in his clutches. And I'm like, and I remember telling my mom that if I have to bury her, you're burying me too. And she's like, don't do that to me.
Understood. Don't give up. Best advice ever. Diane, what would your advice be to grandmothers who maybe have a grandchild who's addicted? What would you say?
Be stubborn like I am and just insist and try to convince them that family is it. Family is everything. And I will always be there for her.
I love that. And Brian, you're a big tough guy. You weren't afraid to cry. I like that. What kind of advice would you give to family members?
Try not to give up on them, and know that your family is going to be there to help you through anything you have.
Yep. That's great. I think you guys are a great example of a family doing the right thing. Lexie, what are you doing these days? What's your goal? Where are you headed?
A lot. So I'm very fortunate that my mom has her own business. So I work for my mom, and I have ever since I came out of rehab. I'm currently trying to save up to buy a mini home, like one that's like the size of an apartment, but so that I can start, building in my name. And at the same time, I'm also going to school for nursing, because I would like to be in the medical field. Ideally, if I can make it further, that would be my bigger goal. But for now, I'm just going to get my feet wet and start getting in there as a nurse.
I think that's awesome. Bobby, thank you so much for arranging this podcast today. I just think that this one is going to resonate with all of our listeners.
You're quite welcome. And I want to thank these guys for being here and agreeing to do it and share their story. And I just have to validate each and every one of them, because they made the decision and they stuck with their decision and their resolve and their intention. And it was there from the start. And that for me is, it's an intervention as to helping families. Is you got to have that. This is a group thing. It's not just, it's a group effort, and so I really, really appreciate who these people are. And I got to say, from Tammy, when I sit down with her, it was like I said, she's gonna. This is a desperate mom trying to help her daughter. And I learn from every family that I help. I learn things, from these guys. And then I met Diane, and I'm like, oh, well, she speaks for herself. Then I met Brian, he speaks for himself. And the truth is that each one of these guys has their own resilience. Lexie on the way, which was an overnight trip, red eye from New York to Dallas. I knew she was miserable, but she never really complained.
Wow.
Never really complained, which is really unheard of in this day and age. These guys, she's like this old guard, person, and then Diane, never having flown on a plane, not only took a red eye from, I think, Philadelphia to Dallas, then had to turn around and get on a plane right back to New York, which was, I'm like, I don't know, I felt terrible for her, because I thought, I'm going to be asleep in about 2 or 3 hours, and she's got to fly back. It was so there's a lot of toughness and resilience and a true intention, and the decision was made that this was going to turn around. So,
well, I cannot thank you enough. And Brian, Diane, Tammy, you guys totally, what's the word? You are the epitome of a family caring and doing whatever it takes to help your loved one. And Lexie, all the best of success to you. And I'm just saying, you could do this as a job if you wanted to be a public speaker. And that's the other thing, is like, I appreciate you guys being willing to share this, because so often when a family has a loved one who's addicted, they don't want to talk about it, and they don't want anybody to know. You guys are not afraid to ask for help, and that's huge. Yes, Lexie, go ahead.
I would just like to add, Bobby, you're going to be forever part of the family, because if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be here today. If my mom didn't, get in touch with you, because like my mom had mentioned, I went to the hospital the next day. Oh, wow. And the doctor had said to me, I don't know how you walked in here. And I turned around to her and I said, that's because I'm a trooper. And she started laughing. But, if he hadn't gotten me when he did, who knows what would have happened in the next 24 to 48 hours. So I will be forever grateful for you, Bobby.
Thank you.
I love it. Thank you all. Okay. I am probably more excited about this podcast than I have been about any in a very long time. We typically schedule these podcasts out weeks in advance, but I'm going to move this one up because it is so impactful. And if you have a loved one who is addicted, you need to watch and listen to this podcast maybe over and over again. And if you really want help, you need to contact Bobby Newman. I will put his phone number up. I will put his contact information up on the video. If you listen, we talk about him in the middle because he also advertises with us. And yeah, you're going to want to contact Bobby. So thank you so much for listening. We'll be back again next week with another interview, and have a good one.
You have been listening to the Addiction Podcast, Point of No Return. For more information, reach out to us on Facebook or go to www.theaddictionpodcast.com. Our email is theaddictionpodcast@yahoo.com.